Hello and welcome to the Things We Know. I'm Carrie Morin.
And I'm Lisa Callahan. And today we're going to talk about something we thoroughly enjoy more than before for a lot of reasons. I've always loved it, but yeah, it's cool now, which is parenting.
Yay. Yeah, it's amazing how fun it is to talk about now. I think you're right. I've always enjoyed it. It wasn't always fun to talk about. Felt like for a long time, that's all anyone wanted to talk about.
That is a fair point. Yes, you're right. I just always think like I've always felt and I feel lucky in this respect that every stage was fun. And now talking about our children that have grown up feels fun on a different level. But this is not an episode about parenting tips. This is just us riffing as we always do. Our kids are basically the same ages. We both have a 20-year-old and a 16-year-old, and then you've got one in the middle.
I got a 19-year-old.
19-year-old. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's just, again, these are the things we know, but it's recognizing what we didn't know back then, and the instincts that we have as parents and the things kind of that we wanted to change as well, right?
Oh, absolutely. And it's funny you just said that 'cause, my mom used to give me that compliment. You never wish them out of any stage. You seem to love every stage. And I did love every stage. And I think we talked about this before we were recording. You and I were both people who didn't think we wanted to have kids. So I think once I did, I was thoroughly delighted by these little funny humans. It's not to say I loved every moment. That is not at all true. Someone says, oh, when they're little, the days are long, but when they grow up, the years are short. And it's so true. Now I kind of look back at it like, well, I could just go back to those days.
Do you have videos though? Like we have videos
and we have a lot of videos.
Sometimes I can watch them and sometimes it's too much of a heart squeeze. The kids love to watch it because, they're just seeing themselves younger. But for me, there's sometimes that I'm just in a headspace. I'm like, I can't.
It's funny. We just recently were watching. People ask us all the time, and this is probably interesting for you because, we're a pretty musical family. My kids are musicians, and people will say, what got you started? How'd you get them started? And then you look at family videos, you'll know exactly why. They sucked, and they would take over all the instruments in the house and put on these quote unquote concerts and sell tickets for them and make us sit through this horrible cacophony. And Brendan would leave it over and be like, we need fucking lessons. Like we need lessons now. And so sorry, kids, but they know this. So that's why my kids had lessons pretty early, because if we were going to listen to it, we needed them to learn something.
That's so funny. One of my favorite videos, and maybe I'll throw it up on the Facebook page. Charlotte won't see it, so she won't know. One of my favorite videos is Liam on the keyboards, and I'm air quoting that for the podcast, and Charlotte singing at the top of her lungs, and she is probably 4. Oh. We will rock you, but she has the rock stance. She's got her legs spread, and she's doing rock you. It is
that is
the
awesome.
Fucking funniest thing. I could watch that in repeat all day long.
Oh my gosh. I wonder if for the Facebook page, if we can submit little snippets of these videos, because I think we have hilarious ones like that. Oh my gosh, that would be so good. Okay, so we could talk about this. We could just chat and crack ourselves up, but we try to organize ourselves into some topics. So the first one we were talking about was what's the best advice or inspiration we ever heard or followed as parents? And I think you and I both have a couple, right?
Yeah.
And I think, okay, so the first one that I remember, again, because I didn't know if I, wanted to have children. So I had a lot of opinions about, people in my life with their kids. And I was pretty impressed, not to say that I had, all bad opinions. I was watching people and listening and thinking, this is so interesting, watching people create little versions of themselves. Yeah. So I was really drawn to Khalil Gibran. I don't know how people say it. He wrote a book of poems called The Prophet. And we used a reading used that poem in one of the readings in our wedding, but he had one on children. And I pulled it up here because I think it's pretty poignant. And basically, I'm actually not going to read the whole thing, but it's basically your children are not your children. That's life coming through you. You may, seek to be like them, but don't try to make them be like you. You can house their bodies, but not their souls. And it just really hit me. It's a beautiful poem. I encourage people to look it up. It really hits you on this beautiful, temporary, gorgeous responsibility we get when life comes through us. And I think the words were, it's like life's arrow coming through you. So when you look at it that way, you realize, okay, phew, like it's not totally my job. And you and I have a mentor that we both learned from, and she used to say, oh, don't worry, you're going to fuck up your kids exactly the way you're supposed to, just like your parents, did that for you. We all come here to learn the lessons we're meant to learn. Yeah. So what I liked about that poem is it was like, yeah, I'm not going to try to create little Karis and Brendans. Like, I'm here to house and get to know these beings coming through me, because I think, I came from generations of people young parents who did the best they could to kind of create and mold these polite, smart, hardworking people. And sometimes that felt to me like, oh, it's on me to make sure they look good, whether they intended that or not. Right. I didn't want to do that. I wanted, it's not like I wanted mayhem. Of course, you think like, I got to do something right or it's going to be out of control. And both my husband and I come from families with like very young parents who thought, if I'm really hard on this oldest one, the rest will fall in line. And that's really common, especially, in the world I come from. There was a lot of military, young Catholic, parents who were just like, if I'm really strict, this will all work out. Everyone will be safe. Right. And I think Brendan and I both, since we're not the oldest, we both were like, what would it be like if we did that part a little differently, and it's a gamble. So I think later on, again, not sure I was going to have kids. I was working for a nonprofit that had a lot of different programs in Nashville. And one was a youth shelter that also was an opportunity for really impressive young people and high schoolers in the area to be peer mentors, peer educators, and run the teen hotline. And I asked somebody my friend Judy, God, she's incredible, just this expert child psychologist. And I said, what do you think the difference is between the kids who end up in the shelter and the kids who end up volunteering there? And she said, it's not probably what most people would think. And she loved the question. She said, it has nothing to do with their education, the neighborhood they're from, like the amount of money, like the income, nothing. It really, like, there's two different molds. The kids who are in the shelter, they cross all those different, levels and boundaries. They perceive that the adults in their lives, whether it's parents or guardians, are disappointed in who they are, and that they're not measuring up in some way. They perceive that they're either not seen or loved or just they're not who that parent wants them to be. These kids, the ones who are giving their time and seem to be on a track of, that feels quote unquote impressive in some way because they're volunteering. She said they are also from all these different walks of life and neighborhoods and backgrounds. They seem to have at least one adult in their life who really is letting them be who they are and celebrating and supporting that. And that was huge to me. So those two things, right? They're not totally yours. That, and that, how do you get out of their way? How do you let them be who they are? Have I been perfect at that? No.
I mean, nobody's perfect.
But it is the thing that I'm constantly aspiring for, how to step back and say, who are you? What are you about? And how do we stay out of your way to let you stumble and become that person in the ways that you need to? That's my ideal, right? So those are the things I strive for.
Yeah, that's interesting. As you're talking, I'm thinking to myself, and the next topic is sort of like, what do we want to do different from our parents? But I think I'm sitting here thinking, what kind of like advice did I get from my parents? And I don't think I got any. And I was trying to, as you're talking, I'm like, why didn't I get any? And I think part of it is my parents were divorced when I was in the 7th grade. Right. And so I had, my mom was young. She was only 21 when she had me. My dad was 9 years older. And as I'm saying this, I know exactly what the advice was, which is it was unspoken, but my parents divorced in a conscious uncoupling way before there was a conscious uncoupling. I mean, before Gwyneth and whatever.
Chris Martin.
Chris Martin. Thank you. My parents divorced in a really amicable way. Especially now that I know why they divorced, which I didn't know at the time. And so I just learned real early on that you could break up with somebody, you could no longer be together and still be friends and still co-parent in a way that made both your kids feel seen and heard. So
Nice.
I don't necessarily, that would be the tip I got from my parents. But for me, my come from is more like, I also didn't think I was going to have kids. My mom was for sure didn't think I was going to have kids. And so she was surprised when I got pregnant with Liam. And I didn't think I was going to until I decided to. But the more of it is about I've had people ask me like, your kids are great. What's your tip? And my tip has always been, bring your kids with you. Don't let your kids lead. Right. So my kids listened to our music. They went to our restaurants. Yeah. If they had a meltdown, we took them out. We weren't shut up, be quiet. We're like, okay, we're out of here. We went to see the Wiggles, but that was because I liked the Blue Wiggle. I had a crush on the Blue Wiggle. We went twice for me. The kids just happened to be excited about that.
My oldest will deny it, but his first concert was the Wiggles.
Yeah, I mean, but then along that same line, so we've got this, I saw this quote yesterday by Adam Grant. If you don't follow him on Instagram, or I'd highly recommend it. But his quote was, the primary job of parents isn't to make kids happy or successful, it's to build their character. Nurturing character isn't limited to instilling our values. We should also encourage kids to define their own values. True success is preparing our kids to decide who they become. And so that harkens back to me around the idea of helicopter parents, which I just have never been. I don't know if I'm going to use this word, and I know it's not right, but it's like, I'm too lazy. Like yes, I went to parent teacher conferences, but like once they got into high school, I was like, peace out, you do you. And I guess, again, I'm lucky my kids are both, have good time management and so forth, but I just am not that involved as they got older. I let them, and they do make their own mistakes.
Totally.
And, I don't shame them for them. I've made most of them myself. Again, we'll talk about this later, but I just can't, the idea of entitlement and participation trophies is infuriating to me. Sorry, if you're that person.
We should totally do a whole episode on that. That's such a good one. That's interesting when you say that, because I'm in a different situation, right? Like I'm sure there's people who are listening who know me that have witnessed me in both those ways, right? My oldest would say he loves the fact that I never checked his grades. I didn't even know how to log in and do that. But I also think, and again, didn't do this perfectly, not claiming to have done it perfectly. I really do try to let my kids show me who they are and what they need. And my oldest was intensely introverted and like really bookish and really pushed himself. And he didn't seem like he needed me to like overly get involved in that part of, it was more just about asking him, what he needed. And so I literally didn't know how to do that for him. My second kid, who has a lot of challenges, learning challenges, he needs me involved in certain ways. Right. And then my youngest, like, I kind of let him tell me what he needs. Right. Like sometimes he needs me to pay. He'll even say, could you stay on me about this? So it's interesting because I'm constantly like, you show me. At the same time, my dad did check our grades and I got really good grades. And sometimes I look back and I'm a little bit grateful I got them for him because I'm not sure I would have got them for me. And it did open doors for me. So, but I just really never, ever, because I have kids who are different types of learners, and it shows up differently for them. I never want that to be a measure of anyone. So I try to totally de-emphasize that and not helicopter that. Yeah. But it is interesting when you say that, because I definitely think like I was so involved when they were young and I was running things and I was volunteering here and there. And high school, I'm like, I don't know. What do you have going on there? What's that? Like, I have no idea.
Full transparency, in about an hour and a half, 2 hours, I have a volunteer thing for high school. So I just said I'm not involved. But also, I think that, there just isn't the opportunities there was when they were little.
Totally.
But because I was somebody that didn't think they'd have kids, I'm going to say this is going to be super controversial. I don't like kids very much. Like I like my kids and I like some people's kids, but like when I volunteered sometimes at school, I was like, oh, I can't with this, so.
I think it's good to know that about yourself. That is hilarious. I don't think that's controversial.
Please no hate mail. Yeah, it is honest. I am nothing if not honest.
It's true. People always think I love everyone's kids because I do love the kids I know, but really, my kids know I don't love all the kids.
Yeah. And that's that thing where you like the parents, but you don't like the kids. That's brutal.
Or the opposite, but let's not go there.
Yeah,
Let's
okay,
move
sorry.
on.
Sidetrack.
Okay. What we are getting into this, right? Like, did we already kind of go into that? What we would do differently than our parents?
Yeah, I don't know what I would do differently. I mean, my parents it was just a different age. We're both the same age. So my mom was 21 and my dad was 30, and I think that was a big age difference that probably to some extent led to their divorce. I don't know that I would do anything differently. I do know. I said I wouldn't, and I do. My mom was always so insecure about everything, around her parenting, around her humanness, around everything about her. And so she tended to be a martyr. And that is definitely something I don't like very much. I remember, I use this joke a lot, but I remember her coming one time to my house and being like, I offered her a beer and she was like, only if you have enough. And I was like, Mom, I am not nice enough to give you my only beer. It's like, if I'm offering you a beer, I have a beer, for the love of God.
That's so sweet. Gosh. It's funny. On some days, especially when I was younger, I could have come up with a whole list. And right now I'm having this like thinking of your mom, thinking of like the things that I really appreciate about my parents. Like, I felt incredibly loved. I love that we had dinners together so much. Like, that family dinner was a big thing. I love that we, had some really fun vacations, even when money was tight. And so these are things that I like hope that I continue. I think what I would do differently, I think, my dad, was a Marine fighter pilot, very proud, really happy, wonderful, loving guy. But if he lost his temper, it was a little scary.
Yeah.
And he never really repaired. I don't remember if he ever said, like, I wish I hadn't done that. And I remember thinking, and my husband has very similar feeling, like, I will do that. Like, I want to repair. And I think if you ask my kids, they'd probably appreciate, well, they probably wish I didn't have so many things to repair, but that I'm, that if I act in a way, or if I respond in a way that I wish I didn't, I will come back and say, I wish that didn't go that way. Like, like, can we try that again? Is it true that they never did? As a kid, I didn't feel like they ever did. So that's probably,
again, that's generational.
Differently, right?
And, it's generational. Again, we are trained in a way that our parents were not trained, meaning you and I are coaches, right? So there's a lot we've learned there. I mean, that's one thing I know for sure, is going through my coaching certification when I did, just as my kids were becoming teenagers, was incredibly impactful. I just said the word. Sorry, that's an inside joke.
Okay, we're gonna keep a little tally here.
Yep, right. Sorry. That was created a lot of impact, because I was able to not always show up as a mom, but more as a active listener. So that's something, But you're right. There's so many things I appreciate about my parents. I always felt loved. I always felt supported. I always felt like I was told I could do whatever I wanted to do. I could accomplish whatever I wanted. And I think that's pretty rare for that generation. So they somehow, crossed that barrier that we have then taken that mantle and moved forward with.
I love that. I thought we were going to be like, and this, and this. And then all of a sudden I'm all warm and fuzzy.
No, I love them.
So sweet. It's so sweet.
I have a lot to say about the next topic, though.
Yeah, let's go. Let's talk about that.
So the next one is, where are we different from our partners? So you and I have both been with our partners since we were in essentially high school, college, right?
I mean, I had a big 5-year gap, but yes, we dated in high school and then ran into each other in our 20s and then got married. Okay. So yeah, I've known him since I was 13, 14.
Yeah. So, and I've known Darren since I was 16. We started dating when we were 18. So yeah, we've been together a long time. And, I'm pleasantly surprised, because I don't know that we did a lot of, because we didn't talk about having kids. I don't remember talking about it. We didn't do a lot of like, how are we going to parent pre getting married? We did kind of fly by the seat of our pants. And for the most part, we parent very similarly. There's definitely that thing that I think happens in every family, where one kid will come, specifically my daughter, I'm just going to own it. It's Charlotte, will come to me and I say no. And she goes to dad and dad says yes. So then she comes back to me and goes, Dad said yes. That's a cliche, but it definitely happens. But I think the biggest thing for me is I'm very honest. And so I'm not about participation trophies. So I have told, when I like something, I tell them. And when it doesn't land for me, I tell them. And it's never about, I don't like it, it's not good. It's like, it just doesn't land for me. My kids are also artistic. And there are things that they do. Liam's a beautiful painter. Charlotte's a fine artist, but she's great in theater and a great singer. And Liam's an okay singer, and they know that. And so I believe that they then know that when I'm telling them I love something, they know it's true. And Darren is more like, I want everybody to know I love everything. And that feels like you're everything to everybody, you're nothing to no one. So it's the one thing where I'm like, oh, I don't think that works.
Yeah. Oh gosh. I would say too, there's a few things here. And I think the thing that we didn't think about, which was interesting, is that, I've taught teenagers before, and I really love teenagers so much. And we didn't talk about parenting teens. I think we were really similar and on the same page, like backing each other up just naturally. But when it got to be teenagers, and things happen, like the things that normally happen that teenagers start, I used to call my oldest my model home until he hit puberty. And then all of a sudden, he had that kind of mouth on him and that quick wit, like, the kind of stuff you have, you don't want it brought back at you.
Right.
And he didn't have like the fear that we had with our parents. Right. So he would kind of just start lawyering us at a young age. And this is another thing that I just feel really strongly about from that Khalil Gibran thing. And like, your children deserve your love no matter what. And I also say, we deserve your respect no matter what. Your respect in action. You don't have to feel respect for us, but you do have to, like, to live here. We deserve your respect no matter what. You have to earn our respect. And I have to earn your love and like, right? So so there's that piece. And I think I'm a little stronger on that than Brendan. Brendan kind of lets that stuff go a little bit. I'll be like, hey, I really miss how my dad would walk up and go, you don't talk to your mom that way. You know what I mean? Yeah. So we talk about that and we try to get on the same page. But the place where I feel like with teenagers, we differ is that when they fuck up, and they're always gonna, I would say, hey, just so you know, you haven't done anything we didn't do. And so, like, this isn't about there being something wrong with you. We're not loving you. We love you no matter what. We believe in you. We're disappointed, or we're kind of hurt that, like, we thought we had this worked out, and here we go. Like, we're back to the drawing board. Trust is like a bank account. You took a big withdrawal. You're gonna have to earn some interest back, right? And when I would say those things, sometimes, my kids will say, really? Like, dad too? And I'm thinking, I was there. Yeah. But I'm not going to tell his stories. He has to share his own stories. And he wouldn't for the longest time. And I think we've gotten to a place now that my oldest is 21, where I'm like, they don't need you to be a dad right now. They just want to get to know you. And my own son, has said that, like, hey, dad lost his dad when he was 20. He missed the chance of getting to know him as a guy, like, and hear his stories. So my kids love hearing his stories. So I think we have differed that way. I think it's coming around. And I'm sure if my husband was here, he'd probably tell you the way that I'm differing from him too.
oh, no question. Yes, absolutely. And you're right. That's a big one for me as well. Everything that my kids have done, I've been like, yeah, I did that. And then they'll be like, did dad do it? And I'm like, you'll have to ask him, but then when they ask him, and he lies, because it's a lie, I mean, I'm not going to pull punches. And then they'll look at me and I'm like, and I've said to him, like, why, to what end, and I don't want him to know that I did it. And then I agree with it. I'm like, no, that's not what this is. It's not. In fact, just the opposite is true. I mean, there were things that, because my mom was a single mom, dating, working, there were things that I got away with, and my sister definitely got away with, more so even probably than me, that my kids know, and I don't allow them to get away with it too. Specifically, boys sleeping over. My mom, there were times she just didn't know. She was busy dating. I also fully believe I know she was having, boyfriend sleepover. So I think there was an aspect of, like, because she was young, like, I can't tell you to do something I'm doing.
Don't ask, don't tell.
Right, exactly. And so when Charlotte comes to me and is like, can my boyfriend sleep over? I'm like, hell no, he can't sleep over. Just because I don't feel I absolutely don't regret anything that happened in my teenage years, and I don't look at my mom and go, what the hell were you thinking? But I am not my mom, so I'm fully aware of what's going on, and I'm not going to allow that. So admitting it doesn't mean you are okay with it.
No, that's true. In my case, my mom was just really naive. She had thought about being a nun. I don't even know if she knew what the F word was after she was married. She was young. She was like in her early 20s. So there's a lot she just didn't know. She wasn't clued in on. And I learned at being the youngest how to meet all the parameters to get away with stuff so that I didn't have to lie. Right. And awesome. So I might have done things my kids cannot do because I do know. I am clued in. I'm aware. Right. So it's same. I get that part.
Like, I see you. Oh. Just because I'm 53 doesn't mean I didn't do that shit.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. What do you think, Lisa, your kids appreciate most about the way you parent? If we would ask them today, at the ages they are now.
So I think they appreciate, I definitely have a temper. And especially my oldest Liam and I can go at it, but then we immediately sort of repair, as you were saying. But I'm trying to think, Liam said this a lot to me. He feels like he can come to me with anything and I won't react. But again, that's partially my coaching. There was a time where Liam literally said to me, can you only talk to me in your coaching voice? And I was like, what does that mean exactly? But I think that's it. He understands that there are things he could say to me that I will get curious about and not lose my shit. And he perceives that maybe Darren will. And so he wants me to filter it for him. Charlotte, I don't know. Charlotte's 16. We are very similar. And I think she's at this place where there are many, many moments where just me breathing is upsetting to her.
I'm laughing because I think I got off really easy not having a daughter. I have 3 boys, but this is it's just so funny because I have a friend with 2 daughters. She's like, I think her daughter was in 7th grade. She's like, seriously, Sarah's like, can you stop making that noise? And Kim's like, what? She goes, that noise. She goes, breathing? I guess so.
Yep.
No, and my middle one, he really hates the way people eat. And so sometimes if there's no music on, we're all like eating really carefully. But yeah. Oh God.
That's a thing. I have that too. I can't stand to hear people chew. It drives me nuts.
I'm a little bit that way too.
Yeah.
I heard there was a study once that came around that says it's a sign of intelligence. I'm going to go with that.
Sweet. Yep.
Yeah.
So for you, what would your kids say about you?
I would love to ask them. I was like, I should text them while we're on here. No, I would say my guess would be that I'll just go with one thing that my oldest, because I think he's probably earned the right to be the most critical, right? Yeah. I mean, they probably all have at this point with the youngest being 16, but I think watching the way other parents parented, he really appreciated that during that stage, he decided to go to college, and that's not for everyone, but he decided he wanted to apply to college. And I really didn't write him. I was like, this is going to be your thing. Right. Yeah. And he really appreciated that I let him dictate it. And he also noticed, being at a friend's house where things were blowing up, a friend he would sometimes see, it wasn't a friend he didn't know those parents very well, but what he noticed was that when that child tried to get away, that young man tried to get away from his mom, that she kept following him in his room to keep having the conversation. And he said many times, I so appreciate that you let me walk away and take space, and that you never come to our rooms to keep things going. And I don't know that I even held that value. I think I was like, all right, then go back to what I'm doing. I don't know that I was sitting there doing it with some conviction and pride in myself. I just I think that comes naturally to me to be like, I don't want someone following me if I'm pissed off. I think if I'm literally taking space, I need it. And so I think that just is an accidental win for me, that I don't keep that, because my husband would probably laugh being like, that doesn't apply to me apparently, but because I'll be like, hey, what is that? But I definitely think with my kids, like, I just don't, I mean, if I were to change anything, I would say early on with my oldest, I probably was a little bit more on top of big explosions and expressions of anger, where it's over time with him and the rest, I really learned to be like, you can be pissed off, go throw something at the wall, go do that. Like, maybe don't do it right here where your brothers might get hit by it, but like, go do that. So I think that that's what they would appreciate. I think that I give them space.
And what did Peter say to you?
Yeah, Lisa and I, we had this conversation about people saying, I think I'm a good parent. And we were talking about a friend of ours who was really justifying some things about himself. And he said, well, I know I'm a good parent. And Peter said, I mean, I don't think you get to say that. I think only the children that you parented get to say that. And it's a really good point.
Yeah.
Do we get to say, I'm a good parent, or do our kids have the right? Are they the only ones with the right to say that? And that's a good question.
I think that's spot on, and not everybody, again, to go back to our mentor, we all, even if we're good parents, there's still something we're doing. We're all parents are doing the best they can, even the ones that are on the face of it and by societal standards not doing a good job. There is a positive intention behind why they're doing it. And so it is freeing to know that no matter what you do, good parent or quote unquote bad parent, you are screwing up in some way and screwing them up, and they will do that to their kids. And we were done too, even with good parenting. And there's freedom in that, because then you just get to be who you are. So that was huge when I learned that, for sure. I remember that moment distinctly, like, oh shit.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I do love that. I think I think that letting them be who they are, and delighting in them. I think that's what you and I are enjoying so much right now. They are 5 incredibly different, unique beings. And I always say, like, God, if I didn't know them, I'd want to.
Yes.
I really enjoy, and that's, like that is one of my things that I just thoroughly enjoy these humans. They are so themselves. Like my husband's father, who passed away when my husband was 20, that he used to say about his youngest, gosh, if we didn't have her, we'd have had to invent her. I feel that way about all 3 of my children. Like, I'm so glad that these people exist, because they all each have something so delicious that they bring to my life, but like to the world.
Yeah, I love that. Well, we have promised 80s rock music references. and we started this with the first 3. So we're going to try to continue it with everyone. We're going to somehow throw in a lyric of a song that we grew up with. And so, of course, I mean, we had some choices, but of course we picked Parents Just Don't Understand. And part of what I love about this is I worked at a place in high school / college called Soundtracks, where it was like karaoke, but you could record it. And people definitely came in and thought they were in a recording studio. It was hysterical, but I actually did record this at some point. I will not rap this, but I will instead read the lyrics of Parents Just Don't Understand by DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, otherwise known as Will Smith. So the very first lyrics are, parents are the same, no matter time nor place. They don't understand that us kids are going to make some mistakes. So to you, all the kids across the land, there's no need to argue. Parents just don't understand.
Yay.
And scene.
Oh, wow. Well, we could do a part 2, and we will, and probably more focused on what we love about our relationships with our adult children, right?
Yeah.
And I was just thinking when you said that too, like I always said I wanted a house with laughter and music, and I feel like both of our kids have that, especially with those lyrics. Oh my gosh. But for now, these are the things we know. And we hope you will share some of your reflections and funny stories and ideas about parenting too, because we're all learning together and we're lucking out, right? So go there, go to our Facebook group, join the conversation. The Facebook group's called The Things We Know Podcast.
So thank you as always for listening. And if you like what you heard here, again, this is my favorite thing to say, hit the subscribe button. And I'm going to give you one more call to action, which is if this is something that landed for you today and you know somebody who would enjoy hearing about parenting or any of the other topics we've done, share this podcast with just one friend and let's grow this listenership organically. But until next time, thank you so much. I'm Lisa Callahan.
And I'm Kari Morin.
And this is The Things We Know.
Cheers.
Cheers.